Look, I know niche marketing is the new black, and I get it. The more models you have in the showroom, the better the chance you are of finding the right seat for the right bum. But at the moment, you almost need a map to stay with the Ford Ranger pricing ladder. The user chooser models start with the Ranger Sport with either 4-cylinder or V6 turbo diesel power. Then you move up to the Wildtrak with the same choice of drivelines. Then there's the Platinum with the V6 turbo diesel, and right at the top you've got that bonkers Raptor with the twin turbo petrol V6 at almost 90 grand. And somewhere between the Wildtrak and the Platinum sits this car. This is the Wildtrak X. What's it all about? Where's it fit?
When you look at the Ranger's price ladder, the Wildtrak X's place doesn't really become much clearer. Okay, you've got the Raptor range topper at $87,990, and below that, the V6 diesel Platinum at $78,190. Just below that is this car at $75,990, and a good chunk of change more than the $72,390 being asked for the standard Wildtrak V6, and an even bigger chunk than the $68,490 2-litre Wildtrak on which this car is based.
So, let's just imagine you're prepared to pony up for the Wildtrak X. What are you actually buying? What does the extra money get you? Well, inside, it's the big info screen and the suede and leather upholstery. Mechanically, it's the Bilstein remote reservoir shocks. And visually outside, it's these specific 17-inch alloy wheels which move the track out 30mm front and rear, the AT3 tyres, the side steps, and a front bash plate. And if you want all the details on what makes a Wildtrak X an X, check out the written review at carsguide.com.au.
The Wildtrak X also gets the Ranger's clever, flexible rack system and the styling bits and pieces that mark it as special, including the specific grille and matrix LED lighting. And that electric roller shutter blind for the tonneau cover, absolute genius. Like a lot of dual cab manufacturers, Ford has decided that what its range needs is a hardcore off-road version that's also good on-road without the price tag of the Raptor. And finally, the X's place in the scheme of things becomes apparent. The front and rear tracks have been increased by 30mm by the use of different wheels rather than longer axles. Ground clearance is also up by 26mm over the standard Wildtrak. Ford has also fitted the improved four-wheel drive system to this model, aiming to improve its transition from on to off-road. The standard shock absorbers have also been thrown away, with a set of remote reservoir Bilsteins going on the X. Throw in the visual stuff like the blacked out badges, a specific grille, front bash plates, side steps, and you have the makings of a Navara Warrior, Triton Extreme, or Hilux Rogue competitor. Let's talk practicality, and while we're at it, let's start with the niggles as I see them. I'm not a huge bloke, but I'm no minnow either, but if I stand on the side step, I find the driver's door opening is too small and I have to almost double up to get inside the cabin.
Rear seat accommodation has been a talking point in vehicles like this since the first dual cab was invented. In the Ranger's case, you have got plenty of headroom and there's plenty of footroom under the front seats. There are, however, only air vents in the centre, when a couple in the B-pillars would be a nice touch. But the real point of contention is the rear seat itself. In this case, it's fairly typical. The backrest is very upright, probably as a result of making the tray as long as possible behind it. But the whole seat, even the cushion, it feels thinly padded and quite firm. That probably won't worry little kids too much, who'll be more inclined to ride on it in crayon anyway. But for teenagers, you might just find that it's one more reason they don't want to go on holidays with you. And while I'm at it, doesn't matter what age you are, with all this dark grey leather and suede and the black roof lining, this can be a bit of a sensory deprivation chamber in the back. While the broader Ranger lineup has a choice of engines, if you're buying the Wildtrak X, this is the engine you will get. It's the 2-litre 4-cylinder twin turbo diesel. Makes 500 newton metres of torque, which is tonnes, and 150 kilowatts of power. Now, interestingly, that's 4 kilowatts less than this motor used to make, but now it's been improved and retuned so that it's Euro 6 compliant for emissions, which is a good thing. The flip side to that is that it now requires AdBlue additive, so you have to add that to your running costs. It will make a difference over the life of the vehicle. But it's all good technology. The 10-speed automatic transmission is a well-known unit now, and this car also has a lock-in rear diff.
Where you'll appreciate the improved four-wheel drive system is when it's raining or when you're on a road that looks okay but could be hiding damp or slippery patches. That's when being able to select all-wheel drive with a bitumen setting makes the most sense. Of course, this isn't new, and lots of cars and pickups subscribe to the same theory, mainly because it works. But how's the drive otherwise?
So one of the first things you'll notice when driving the Ranger, and this applies to a lot of dual cab pickups, not just the Ford, is that the experience is quite remote. There's a lot of mechanical stuff going on here, so the manufacturers sort of dampen it down so that you don't feel that everything's going on. And the result of that is when you're sitting as high as this, you actually have to watch the speedo like a hawk because there's not a huge sensation of speed. So you can actually find yourself over the limit pretty quick. The other thing that I've noticed about this car is that the transmission is calibrated to pick up the gears really fast as it shifts up through all 10 gears. Now the idea there is to improve fuel efficiency by keeping the engine revs low, and it works in that sense. But what I've found is that you can find yourself tootling along at 1500 or 1600 RPM, and when you apply any throttle at that point, it sets up a bit of a harmonic through the car that I can really feel through the seats and the floor. It's almost as if the engine's lugging, and in fact that's probably exactly what's happening. By 1800 RPM, the sensation is gone, but you will notice it, or at least some drivers will, and it will annoy some people. Something I reckon would improve this car would be fitting paddle shifters for the transmission. You don't need them on-road. Where they work in a vehicle like this is off-road. Now Ford's stuck with its little switches on the gear selector. In this case, they're tiny, they're indiscriminate, they're black on black, they're almost invisible. They don't really work because, let me tell you, when you've just nosed over a spoon drain and you're dropping into a gravelly sluice down into a raging river crossing and all your passengers are screaming and the oxygen masks have dropped from the overhead lockers, the last thing you need is to be scratching around the center console and gear stick for a button to find the right gear to get you through that river. That's not how you want your life to turn out. So what about those new high-end Bilstein shock absorbers? What have they done for ride comfort? Probably not much. What have they done for suspension control? Probably a little bit more than that. This is a very good off-road vehicle. The Ranger always has been. And that's the thing you've got to remember. This is a bit of a Swiss Army knife car. It can go up the freeway at 110 with a family on board. It can tow 3.5 tons. It can take almost a ton in the tray. It is a do-all vehicle, and the suspension is a compromise to reflect that. But this car is better than a lot of the pickup utes that you'll buy, and it proves that engineers are getting on top of the concept.
The AdBlue version of the 2-litre engine has recorded a combined fuel economy figure of 8.7 litres per 100 kilometres. With the 80-litre tank, that's a theoretical range of better than 900 kilometres. But don't forget to add the costs of the AdBlue. Bank on spending about $100 every 12 or 15,000 kilometres on the AdBlue additive. Safety is a big deal in utes right now as workplace safety becomes more and more critical. But the Ranger has always been strong in this department, and the latest version has no less than 9 airbags, including a centre airbag. On the active front, you get adaptive cruise control, autonomous emergency braking, traffic sign recognition, post-impact braking, cross-traffic alert and tyre pressure monitoring. And again, the full details are included in the written review at carsguide.com.au. Scheduled services for the Ranger are every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres. The factory warranty is 5 years, unlimited kilometres, and you can pre-purchase the first 5 years of servicing for $1,200. Ford also throws in the first year of roadside assistance.
It's pretty easy to see why the Ford Ranger is such a popular car. It's a competent take on what a modern dual-cab turbo diesel ute needs to be. And the Wildtrak X doesn't deviate from that script. It's a good, solid performer. My only concern is that for that sort of money, I'm probably inclined to be looking for a V6 version for the extra performance and extra refinement. And not everyone will agree with that. The other question is, where do we go to from here? What's the next niche model Ford can squeak into this lineup? Watch this space.